Hello and welcome to Thoughts on A Bug's Life, the second in my series of videos where I go through and watch every single Pixar movie in order of release. And when it comes to A Bug's Life, it's a movie that I haven't seen since I was literally probably about 3 or 4. I have the absolute fringest of memories about this movie. And I haven't seen it yet at the time of talking. I'm about to go and watch it. But just to kind of set you up as to where I am before I see the movie, that's the kind of thing we're going into this feeling like. I started off with Toy Story last week, which is available on the channel if you want to go and see that first. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how animation kind of evolves, and if it's noticeable to someone like me who doesn't study film and animation, just like a casual viewer. And I don't think we're going to see any massive leaps and bounds in this movie, but again, I'm interested to see if I notice any kind of jankiness of the physics like I did last time. But that's enough of me talking about it before I've seen it. I'm going to watch it now, and you're going to hear me talk about it after I've seen it right about now. Okay, it's time to talk about A Bug's Life, and I'm going to come right out of the gate and say it so you don't notice a lack of enthusiasm as the video goes on. I didn't particularly love it. I didn't enjoy it as much as I enjoyed Toy Story, and that's fine. They're not all going to be winners. But I should probably get into why. I mean, first of all, I think it's a good movie. It holds up. Graphically, I would say it holds up better than a Toy Story does. Than Toy Story does. Maybe because it's less to do with humans and objects that we see in the world every day, and more to do with bugs, and it's a little bit less important for it to look 100% realistic, even in its animated style, I guess. Either that or they just came leaps and bounds, I guess. But whereas with a Toy Story, I said it again, I said that it definitely looked like it had aged. And I feel like I could show it to my nieces and they wouldn't know that it was an older movie, but maybe some older people would. With this, I feel like you could just show someone A Bug's Life and they wouldn't know it was an older movie. It holds up that well. I didn't notice any weird physics either. The physics looked good in this, and there's a lot of leaves being moved, and lots of kind of twigs and just general bug appendages flopping around, and they all look natural. Nothing stuck out to me as being weird or jarring. Maybe they did come a long way since Toy Story, I don't know. I think it's very fitting that they made this film after Toy Story. It feels like, whereas Toy Story was kind of the urban version of what would life look like at a smaller scale, imagine if toys were sentient, what kind of lives would they live? This is more like, imagine if bugs were intelligent, what kind of lives would they live? And it's like the natural complement to that idea. It's cool. This movie is absolutely filled to the brim with clever ideas for little bug contraptions, because our main character, Flick, he's an inventor. And of course, in real life, bugs don't invent stuff. They just go about their day-to-day lives, rolling shit around, collecting food, that kind of thing, living in their colonies. But this movie was like, what if you had one that was like an inventor who would kind of prompt the industrial revolution of bugs, if you will. And there's so many clever little contraptions they come up with, like the little backpack he wears to kind of gather seeds faster, and the little telescope he makes as well. It's all just genius. My main issue with it all is it's bugs. I don't really care about bugs. I don't really like bugs, and nothing in this movie particularly endeared me to them. I don't get creeped out by them or anything. I'm not really that interested in them. That was one of the reasons I didn't like this movie that much. The other reason is just how chaotic it is. At least in the first half, it feels like 7 things are happening every second, and there's lots of overblown reactions. And I get that it's a kids movie, and that this is probably something I'm going to be seeing in lots of kids movies going forwards, but I feel like this movie suffers a bit from the Star Wars prequels problem, where it's like there is so much, it's so dense, there's so much happening in every shot. And I get that it's more impressive because it's animated instead of just kind of I mean, I guess some of the Star Wars stuff is animated, but they try and fit it into a live action world and it doesn't really work. And I'm not necessarily saying it's a bad choice that they went with, but it made me tired. If I'm honest, I watched this movie in 2 sittings, and I never do that with movies. I just got halfway through it and I was like, man, I'm gonna go do something else. And then tomorrow when I'm eating, I guess I'll watch the other half. It was like, look at this and this and this, and there's this visual gag, and then this happening over here, and then someone screaming because this happened. And again, it's made for kids. Maybe I'm just a grumpy old fart already at 26, but there you go. Again, no, I don't think this movie's bad. I do like it, and again, it's so full of great ideas. I like the idea that they really do go all in on the fact that we're seeing the world from a bug's perspective. And for instance, the grass makes these massive jungle-like environments, and dandelions are like these massive tall trees that you can climb up and stuff like that. It's pretty cool. There were some moments in the movie that I liked, that made me laugh as well. I wasn't a huge fan of the idea of circus performer bugs, because again, this movie's just really hitting on all the wrong frequencies for me, but I don't tend to enjoy circus type characters as a general aesthetic. There's no like deep-seated dislike or moral opposition to them or something weird like that. I just don't like go, oh cool, a circus performer. I'm more like, oh okay, cool, a circus performer, I guess. And I guess as someone who grew up reading Cirque du Freak, that's kind of weird. But I did like stuff like the stick insect who hates being typecast.
What's the point of going out there? They'll only laugh at me. That's because you're a clown! No, it's because I'm a prop. You always cast me as the broom, the pole, the stick, a splinter. You're a walking stick! It's funny! Now go! You parasite.
Every line in that scene was delivered perfectly. I did also enjoy the comment from the Fly, who wasn't enjoying the performance.
I only got 24 hours to live and I ain't gonna waste it here! Come on!
I thought that was quite funny, but also interesting when you consider life from that Fly's perspective. Like, yeah, he hasn't got time to stick around and see things he doesn't like. He's gonna die soon. Never mind fucking ants. Give me a movie about that guy. Actually, don't. Flies are gross. I suppose I should talk about the underlying plot of this movie. It's very much a revolution movie, of I guess you could say intellectual ant trying to rouse the minds of his peers and get them to think beyond the day-to-day. Like, we are given this example near the beginning of the movie of a break in the line, and the ants suddenly panic and they're like, oh my god, there's a gap in the line, and it's like, oh, it's fine. It's like efficiency and routine are all that matter to these ants, and Flick is very much like, what if we did things differently? If we stopped for a second and thought about this, we could do it more efficiently. And that's also kind of what fuels the flames of revolution, when he's like, you know, like we have our lives so tough because these grasshoppers come and take all of our food and push us around. And while he doesn't necessarily go out of his way to start a revolution, and he's kind of fueled more by selfish means a lot of the time, he does end up getting there. And of course Flick overcomes his selfishness towards the end when he stands up for his colony, and that's not going to earn him any points with, you know, the grasshoppers who are going to kill him for it. So but yeah, he definitely starts off as just trying to cover up his mistakes, and he kind of blunders his way into being a bit of a hero, as when you think about it, a lot of animated heroes do. I think Princess Ada is a much better female character than we've seen so far with Toy Story. She takes charge of situations. She's nervous in her role as learning to be the queen and all this stuff, but she comes to decisions. She listens to the people around her. She makes hard decisions like exiling Flick, even though she likes him, because it's the right thing to do, at least in their eyes at the time, and taking responsibility as well. And you know, she's cool. I want to point out a little detail which I noticed, which really makes me kind of go, oh man, you know, so much love gets put into the animation of these Pixar movies. There is a scene when Flick's brought the circus performers back and he's pretending they're warriors, and the princess is very happy with him, and they have a little bit of a moment, and he's looking into her eyes, and when he blinks, it's kind of like ever so slightly lopsided. So like one eyelid closes just like a like millisecond before the other, and it's noticeable, and when she blinks it's perfectly symmetrical, and that is obviously a choice they've made, because when you think about it, every single movement is crafted, you know. It's not like it just happened to be this way. It's not like a live action movie. If this was a live action movie, I wouldn't be obsessing over blinks, but here we are, it's an animated movie. Somebody made the decision to have those two different styles of blinking. The reason I bring it up is because later on, when, you know, Princess Atta knows more about the situation, about Flick's mistake, but he comes back and saves the colony and stuff, and they're having another moment where they're looking into each other's eyes and seeing each other as they truly are. She does kind of a lopsided blink at that moment, and you know, I didn't go through and look at every single blink in the movie, so maybe I'm making anthills out of molehills. Wait, Mountains out of anthills, that's how that would go. Genius. But I thought it was a really nice little touch. I think the menacing grasshoppers were portrayed absolutely brilliantly. They really did seem like these gigantic bullies which would come in and invade and take your stuff and push you around, and you would be genuinely intimidated by them. I was just about to praise Hopper because I thought he was done by a different actor. I just looked up who the actor for Hopper is. Yikes. You know, two things can be true. It's possible that Kevin Spacey did a good job here, but he's still an awful fucking person. But, you know, just wanted to point that out. Oh boy. Turns out bastards can act as bastards pretty well. Who knew? Maybe Kevin Spacey will get eaten by a giant bird one day and we can all rest easy. Oh, the giant birds, by the way, oh my god, that was done so well. The birds in this movie are legitimately horrifying. They are some of the scariest creatures I've ever seen on screen. Like, they tried to make the dog really scary in Toy Story, which we talked about last week, but the bird beats the dog. I mean, obviously not when, you know, put next to each other in scale, but in terms of like what's scarier, ooh, something about like how quick the bird's movements are, but making it that massive is just nightmare fuel. It's just nightmare fuel. But yeah, I don't have too much else to say about this movie. I guess I'll say I liked how water was handled, because, you know, water droplets, when you shrink down in scale, I don't know if this would actually be true or whether it's just something that they imagined for this movie, but when you shrink down in scale, it does mean that physics don't scale the same way, right? So water's not gonna act the same way when it's that small. So ants, I mean, I'm pretty sure they based this off of footage of ants picking up water droplets, but it's so interesting to see water as at this scale as something that's like, to them it's, you know, as much water as it would be to us at that scale. But because it's at that scale, because it's smaller, it reacts differently. It can kind of like stay together. I mean, I don't know shit about physics, so I'm really out of my depth here, pun not intended, but like it's just interesting. I can't formulate my words clearly tonight, I'm sorry. It's interesting how they just pick up droplets of water and slurp them up out of their hands. I love it, although they don't really have hands, do they? You know what I fucking mean. And that was A Bug's Life. Apologies that this video isn't necessarily as long as a Toy Story. I had less to say about it just because I guess I didn't like it as much, and therefore I didn't pay as much attention to smaller details that I want to talk about. But next week it's Toy Story 2, and I liked Toy Story 1, so maybe I'll have lots to say about Toy Story 2. And then I'm really excited for some things which are coming up after that, like I don't know what was made between Toy Story 2 and maybe it's Monsters Inc. actually. I'm looking forward to Monsters Inc. because I've never seen that movie, or at least I don't remember anything about it. But I'm really excited to get to Finding Nemo and Cars and The Incredibles. Those are the three movies I'm most excited to talk about. But anyway, this has been A Bug's Life. Let me know what you thought about A Bug's Life in the comments below. Should I just start saying this at the end of videos? Like the video if you liked it, because engagement does help. I'm not necessarily trying to grow this channel, this is something I do for fun, but I don't know, do what you want. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next week for another Pixar movie, unless I get sidetracked by one of the many other projects that I do.